Alright, so as I stated before, Sarah will be, in about 6:30, 6:45 to do the audit. So we can actually, start with number 2 on the workshop, which is the park flooding status. The emergency resolution is on the agenda tonight. Last Tuesday, and Jim can correct me, last Tuesday, the Watonwan Commissioners approved the emergency resolution for Watonwan County. So tonight we will do a resolution for the city of Madelia, declaring an emergency for, if FEMA would come in. So what I have actually up there for you guys is a packet that I put together of the pictures that Ben took today, of some damages. The golf course is not in there yet. I met with the League of Minnesota Cities adjuster today, which we took a look at the lift station, garage, and around the lift station. And then she also came down in the park and looked at a few things. Tomorrow morning, auto owners, flood insurance will be in, and I will be meeting with the adjuster right away in the morning. And we will continue our cleanup and, assessing all damages. Ben, do you wanna comment or anything in regards to our fun-filled day?
All I know is Chris worked her ass off all day down there. I don't know very many city administrators will be down there raking for 6 hours a day, so it's pretty awesome. Everybody's trying to help out.
I will look like a lobster tomorrow, so just let me know. I forgot my sunscreen.
Maybe get some SPF 60 down there.
Yeah, so.
Did we have a final elevation or final height, river height, or recorded height as far as what that flood level was?
No, so we did do some, striping on some of the, well, we marked certain places in there.
Yep.
Katie from the DNR, was down, she will be coming down again. With that being said, I also called Bolton Mink on your suggestion, Andy, and had Bolton Mink come in and do drone footage to add to the flood study that we completed.
Okay.
So if, FEMA does come in, I hope that's added footage and the DNR's data that they collected hopefully will help us.
According to that national website, it's the 4th highest one.
The 4th
Yeah.
highest one?
That's what it looks like.
Looks like the only thing from, I think your guys' drone footage, was it the comfort station was the only one that stayed up high enough, or was the
Actually,
clubhouse too?
the clubhouse, it did not get into the clubhouse.
Okay.
So it was probably maybe a foot, 2 feet away,
Kinda
from the
looked like it
door.
was flapping at the bottom of that deck though.
Yeah. But the cart shed, the maintenance shop, that was all under, or that got in so many feet. The shelters, which are on there too, and you can actually see the lines of the shelters, so they were under.
You know, I kind of looked at some historical information on the Cottonwood River because it's got a little better gauging, but it also kind of mirrors. It's got a similar, I mean, it's a little farther north, but it's got a pretty similar rise and fall pattern as the Watonwan, or this fork of the Watonwan. And it's pretty astounding the amount of historical level floods that have happened in the last 25 years or 20-ish years.
Well, just the 10 years that I've been here.
Yeah.
Um,
So, you know, it's definitely one of those things. I think there's enough historical data now, or enough, you know, recent history data where it should be pretty easy to sell
well,
to whoever would be able to help, you know, any type of mitigation.
the biggest thing was we didn't have enough data points.
Right.
So if we go back to when I went to the Capitol to ask for the money for the flood study, it was to, do all of the surveying to get more data points on that part of the river, which the DNR did not have, to help us do a model in regards to what we can do, you know, berm, culverts, whatever, and what the impact of it upstream and what the impact of downstream would be. So now that we've compiled that, we got the $105,000 to do that. Now that we compiled it, and now if we have drone footage and everything, that when FEMA does come back in, it'll be easier for us to sit down and say, this is what we've been dealing with, this is all of our data, this should be, a way for you to come in and now help us to mitigate, so this doesn't impact us so much. And I'll be honest with you, I was kind of a nerd when it was, please don't write that in the paper, but it was kind of a.
It's on camera.
I was kind of a nerd when it came to Bolton Mink showing me the program that they use, they put in all of the information, and the program that they use actually is like 3D footage, or like 3D, like you can go in and like, okay, put a 36-inch culvert here, what does it do with the flow? How does it impact here? How does it impact there? Or what if we would raise the road, you know, a couple feet? What would be the impact upstream and downstream? But you physically, or, you know, I was sitting there and you can seriously see how the flows go and how what it impacts. So I thought that was very, very interesting.
So ideally, they're going to, at some point, present one or two options, or maybe a cost-effective and a best-case scenario option, or whatever.
So when we get to that point, that's when Roberta from Bolton Mink and Katie and Cecile from the DNR, we will all come to the table and discuss what we would be trying to mitigate.
I know in the past, there's been discussion on, you know, just common thought options as to whether it's a.
Weren't there options already presented? A while back, we were still in fire hall.
No, I think those options were kind of just off the top, of what they should maybe pursue in modeling. So we talked about you know, the potential for a bike trail berm along the river through the park,
But
and a
that's-
secondary channel cut and stuff like that, but those were just so that they could model those particular options. I don't think there was necessarily evidence that any of those options would
No,
even work.
so
yet.
we were asking the DNR, and I
Right.
think Cody can chime in on that. We were asking the DNR, we had a meeting down at the golf course with the DNR, but there wasn't enough data to actually do the modeling. So that is why when I went to the Capitol, it wasn't just money for us, it was money for the DNR also, to compile that extra information to do the proper modeling.
Yeah, well, the channel cut was there before, and it
Right.
just got overgrown. But the other thing is, it'd be nice to have the DNR come down, or whoever, clean the river out.
Mhm.
There's some pretty big trees down.
Right, and that's, you know, when I kind of thought that when they had designated the canoe area or canoe route, and it had been designated an actual designated canoe route on their maps. I thought, but the funding must not be there to maintain them. But that's about the time they put the boat ramp into the park. That was.
How many years ago was that?
A lot.
Yeah, probably 20.
Oh, it's more than that. It was there when I started in 2004. So it was before that even.
God, you were so bad.
So,
Well, Bruce Nelson had asked Jim and I to come down and take a look at downstream where it splits. Jim, where was that?
I'm in low scalar.
There you go. And I mean, there's a lot of, to your point, big trees.
I know behind Lois Gaylor, there's one, I mean, pretty much across the river, there's one behind Wolf, a big one on Wolf.
I mean, you could walk across to that little island without getting your feet wet.
okay.
So maybe, you know, and I don't know what the total ask will be, or, you know, I'm sure the study will prove or not prove, but at least model, you know, what possibilities there are, but.
Would that be something, I wonder if you could turn it into FEMA for this time?
Yeah, I don't know, it's something we could ask about, you know,
And
especially
find a free
for,
company that could
especially if it was just,
take it out.
yeah. For local, you know, river cleanup.
Okay.
But yeah, you're correct, there's 1 or 2 by 4 T-box as well, so. You know, the, part of the problem is the river has to be at a pretty minimal level for that to actually work, for people to walk it and cut stuff out and then get rid of stuff, so.
Mhm.
Might be one of those things where try to get the funding now and hope that somebody remembers to call it in when the river's no longer at its current levels.
Okay.
As far as some of the things that we talked about, as far as bringing in extra help, are you comfortable with the staffing and everything you have now?
I tried. I tried to get some sentences served, but it's gonna take a while to get the sentences served in.
They need at least a week notice to send out letters to get people where they need to be.
If we want the campground up and running by this weekend, that's kind of why.
But is there day labor options or anything like that, or we don't necessarily wanna go that route, cause it's just not enough help, or what?
If there's what?
Like day labor, like temp service, day labor?
Well, we're taking all of our, I'm bringing in seasonals
Okay.
right now. And there'll be some more. I had, 2 of them today with me, and then I'll have another one tomorrow. And we just keep them plugging away.
Did we have a lot of bookings in the campground this weekend? Was it pretty full?
This is one of our bigger weekends, and so that's our concentration right now. The golf course, obviously will be opening up the clubhouse, for sign up for men's league on Wednesday and Thursday. But right now it is very, very wet out there, so we're not allowing anybody on the course yet. Doing the best we can.
We appreciate your extra hard work and dedication, and like Ben said, not too many city administrators would be down there sweating.
Just,
He found me this nice beer scrunchie today. I mentioned that.
couple
Throw
times.
nothing gets thrown away.
You weren't using it anymore, Ben?
No, I'm not quite thrown all in one.
Out in the compensation.
Hang on the fence.
Is there gonna be any restrictions on playground equipment and stuff? Does that have to be?
That's kind of why we closed down the park completely.
Park's closed until everything's ready to go.
Okay, but you're thinking by the
There's
time.
there's no shelter rentals this weekend. I would say we should be done with picnic table cleanup tomorrow, disinfecting everything. So the campers should be good to go by Thursday, and we'll start tackling shelters and playgrounds after that. I only have one pressure washer available, so I just, we'll do one thing at a time, so
Sure.
we're gonna tackle, I would say by the end of the week, we'll have everything ready to go.
You know, and if there's certain things that don't get done, just make sure that the
We'll
campers.
just
are-
caution tape them off.
Yep, and let the campers know what the situation is.
Okay. Any other questions on that? We'll go into chip seal bids. So Ben had a proposal and he sent it out and he received 2 bids back. This year's budget had $95,000 allocated for the chip seal. Both of the bids came back at about, well, one was about 132.5, and the other one was 137, well, we'll just say 138,000. So, about 42,000 over what was budgeted. We may need to take some of the work out of there to stay within budget unless the council feels that they want to go with the whole project.
So So then the previous chip seal bids or the previous routes, was that all determined by square footage or linear footage or just sections of town, or how did we determine kind of what to go by or what we wanted to get done every year? Is it every year like half the town or a quarter? So if this current bid is over, you know, an extra 50% over what we had budgeted, it's just one of those things where we're just gonna have to start budgeting.
Actually, you guys, you could take out anything that involves Center Street. All of Center Street chip seals can be taken out. Cause we just got informed that the bonding bill went through.
It passed.
So everything on Center Street, we don't have to do.
Okay.
But just for future reference, is it something where we're gonna want to either increase the line item for chip seal or decrease the amount we expect to get done to maybe a fifth of the town, or, you know, cut the linear footage?
Doing
Much
some
of
math.
it's on Center Street.
I got 23,712.
So there's a good portion there that you could take out just off the Center Street budget then.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't chip seal anything that's gonna get replaced in the next year.
Is there any main that's, I mean, other than the crossing, is there any main that's gonna get torn up as part of the bonding bill?
All depends on the infrastructure. And we will address that when we go into design phase.
Okay.
Looks like it comes to Center though.
You probably wouldn't chase it more than a block though, would you?
No,
Any direction from center?
it would just be if there's a manhole and there's some infrastructure going to the manhole right there.
So this was the, what was it, 95 that we budgeted for?
Mhm.
95,000.
Yep.
So that's how much it increased, was almost $45,000, or over $45,000?
Well,
Just
let's-
because inflation, or?
We haven't changed the 95,000 in our
Oh,
budget line
gotcha.
item.
That's kind of what I'm getting at is.
To reflect the inflation. So it's been 95,000, I bet you, for the last how many years?
As long as I've been around.
Yeah,
But
Last year we were over also, we just didn't do Riverview.
it wasn't by much though. I don't think we went over 100,000 on that one.
Well, cutting out Center Avenue is only gonna cut 16. About 16 grand.
So if we did, to Andy's point, if we did it every 5 years, as opposed to every 4 years, what does that do? Is that a problem?
No, I just gotta relay out the town, just section it off different.
What do you think it'll last? Long enough? I mean,
Yeah, oh yeah, cause this stuff takes 2 years to fully cure. So you got the year you put it on, right? And a year after that, it's still busting out, and then another year after that, to really get that to harden up, so. Yeah, you could push up to 6 if you wanted to.
I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but.
Well, I mean, maybe it's something that the street commission wants to talk about further after this year, but at some point, we might wanna look at either increasing or cutting it back enough and then start actually replacing some,
Mhm.
you know, really
Well,
large sections.
and would you wanna do the true value in the banks?
If you cut out all the Camper World, that development, all the Riverview
You don't
Lanes,
need it out there.
and all the parking lots and alleys, we come in under the quoted amount by Pearson Brothers by about $36,000. So,
But isn't it-
if you wanna count center,
True value in
Yeah, so the True Value Bank parking lot, they're probably gonna
Oh,
end up
yeah.
getting,
So cut out the parking lot behind True Value.
okay. There's gonna be
And
some
that
EV
alleyway.
Chargers placed there, and then they're gonna redesign the parking lot, I think.
Well, that's not out here, that alleyway. Well, I guess, yeah, it's True Value and Banks, but that's,
Cause that parking lot's with this bonding bill,
Okay.
and so is that alley.
Okay.
So what is,
I mean, I think it's probably gonna end up close enough by the time we figure out exactly what,
can,
I guess, when are they planning to actually do the work?
They usually come around here about August.
So when would, Bolton Mink or whoever we're gonna have do the next phase of actually,
for Center Street?
yeah,
We go, well, once everything is finalized and everything is a done deal, then we go into design phase.
right, but I'm saying once it's into, even before it's in design phase, they've done some preliminary work.
I'm not sure if we'll get a shovel in the ground this year.
No, but what I'm saying is, can Adam tell us what to eliminate completely, like within a week? If we ask him tomorrow, can he just tell us, don't do any of this because it might get done?
Oh, yeah.
For seal coating?
Well, I think it just, Ben, we didn't know about the bonding bill until like literally
I was
when we
walking
were
the door.
walking in the door
When I got
tonight.
this.
So
I
I,
just give me a number, tell me a number what you wanna be under, and I'll decide.
Well, I think we just wanna do whatever it costs, except for not Center Street or anything that's gonna be
Okay, so
involved
you
in
wanna
that
do
project.
all the alleys, all the parking
Yeah.
lots that need it,
Yep,
Riverview,
everything that's on the
Tampa
list
Road.
except for what's, you know,
just give me, as long as you get me what needs to be cut, that's not a big deal.
I think I just need to walk through the whole project with you, Ben, and then you can start mapping off whatever.
I was chatting with bidders, we didn't include that township road that heads west of town,
Okay,
but that needs to be done this year, right?
we'd like to get it on
So
there.
that'll be, I'm assuming that township will pay for the township portion,
Yep,
but our additional cost will be like another $3,000. Yeah, $3,216.40.
okay.
For West Main Street from the tracks to the property line of town. The townships will be about $12,000.
Okay.
and I know last year we talked about trying to roll that into a possible Joy West Main, but if that's not no longer gonna be the case, we could probably
I think,
try to roll it into the patching for this year if there is any.
okay, Ben, if we don't approve the total tonight, what does that set you back?
They just wanna know,
They got the job.
basically, all you have to tell me tonight is who do you want doing that?
Well, we can just approve low bidder and then they can cut it after.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm
We
trying,
got
I don't
until-
wanna hold up the
We
process.
got until the day they show up to cut whatever we want, or
Okay.
add whatever we want, as long as we get rock delivered.
Okay, so, it'll be another added item on the administrative items to approve low bid, and then Ben and I will then go through the scope of work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bunch of numbers, yeah. They just, the Pearson Brothers just got a bunch of new equipment. A lot of their equipment's too big to even get in our alleys and parking lots and stuff. There might come a day where they say we're not doing those alleys or parking lots.
Okay.
They're, yeah, they're like that.
The, other company that submitted a bid, have you worked with them before or not?
Allied?
No.
They're, so Allied and Pearson Brothers used to be one company.
Oh,
The owner of Pearson's is a brother to the person that
okay.
started Allied. They broke off and started their own company years ago. But like if I was to submit all these numbers to Ground Zero, to Allied, he just subs them out. So, they're the two biggest installers in the state, so I just
Yeah.
went straight to them.
Okay, so the fourth thing on the workshop was to, discuss the nuisance properties. Since our city attorney is not here and he's putting together, what we need to do, he's asked that we take it off and discuss it when he's here.
There are two that I'd like to add to that though.
Okay, can you then, get me the information on those two added properties?
I have,
Okay. So then we'll go back up to number one, Sarah is here. Hi, Sarah. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You ready for me?
Yep.
All right, we'll go through the 2022 audit report. It's gonna be the larger book that I just gave you. That's the one that's, actually encompasses the audit, what gets submitted to the state or funding agencies and such. The other report has, some charts and graphs and comparative history. It's a little bit more of a management tool to use internally. If you skip in about 7 physical pages, it's gonna be the one that starts on the letterhead. That starts the independent auditor's report letter. And what the first page tells you is the opinion on the financial statements. We audited the financial statements of the city of Madelia. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the city. In other words, you have an unmodified or a clean audit opinion for 2022. The next paragraph, the third paragraph there tells you that we include the municipal light and power audit, which is audited by another auditor. And then the last paragraph there tells you you guys have financial statements in accordance with government auditing standards. On the top of page 3, gives the responsibility for the auditors. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements based on the audit. And then if you skip back a little ways and go to page probably 16 here, it starts with the government-wide financial statements. So the government-wide financial statements show the city as a whole, and it shows the city, similar to how we'd see private businesses showing all your long-term assets and liabilities. The municipal light and power is shown as a component unit of the city. The general or the governmental activities had assets of $12,661,000, liabilities of $4,662,000, and total net position of $8,773,000. That total net position gives you the net worth of the city or of those governmental funds. That's broken into 3 components. One of them is that net investment in capital assets, and what that piece is that's the amount you guys have in equipment, buildings, infrastructure, less what you owe on those items. So that is not a spendable resource, so it's about $2 million. The restricted amount is restricted for either capital projects or debt service. And that's $5.3 million, and your unrestricted is that operating piece, and that's $1,416,000. The business type activities would be the utility funds. The assets are $19,301,000, liabilities of $7,293,000, and the total net position of $12,112,000. Just shy of half of that, $5,500,000 is tied up in the capital assets, and the $6,576,000 is the spendable resource there. So as a whole, the primary government has $20,885,000 in total net position, and the component unit, the municipal light and power, has $5,889,000. Again, a good chunk of that, about a little less than half overall, is what's tied up in those capital assets. So it's not the spendable resource. That unrestricted line would be the available funds at the end of the year. On page 17 is the statement of activities. So it gives the kind of an income statement version. It's unique to a government. The change in that position towards the bottom is a increase or decrease in the fund, or the profit or loss over the year. The governmental activities had a decrease of $199,900, and the business type activities had an increase of $420,716. So the primary government had an overall increase of $220,000. The municipal light power had an increase of $17,975. And I know that number is lower than what you guys have seen in the past for the utility side, and that is common what we're seeing out there. The utilities seem to have taken a little bit of a hit in 2022 in relation to some of the previous years with some of the energy changes and such. On page 18 is the balance sheet for the governmental funds. The general fund is your operating fund, so that has total assets of $1,717,000, liabilities of $229,000, and that fund balance is $1,459,000. So on this term, this financial statement, we're seeing the city in what we call the near term. So whatever happened in the calendar year, the first 30 days or 60 days outside of year end, if it came in or went out in that period, then it's accounted for in this financial statement. So it's not taking into account bonds and the long-term assets and such. And that unassigned fund balance of $1,459,000, that's the funds you have left at the end of the year to operate into the next year. The non-major governmentals had assets of $5,965,000 and total fund balance of $5,964,000.
Sarah, can I just make a note on that?
Yep.
Back to the unreserved, you said 1.7 million?
1.4.
1.4? No, that's our reserves, right?
That is your unreserved stuff.
Okay.
That's just your normal operations
Okay.
every day. The amount that's assigned or in your reserves is $573,650. That's what you guys have stuck aside in those capital funds that were created in 22 or 2021.
Okay.
Right?
So technically, okay, so back to our reserve pot, I usually keep X amount percentage wise, but that 573,000 has now been allocated where it was just a big pot before. So now they're separated until I get everything in its right place. It's kind of skewed right now. Does that make sense to you guys?
Well, in the 1.4 million in the general fund, that is the reserve. You're using the term reserve, but it's what you need at the end of the year to operate into the next 6 months. You're not going to get LGA and tax money until June and July of 23, so you need 6 months plus maybe a little bit to get through that. So it's, when you say reserve, some people look at that as the reserve, but in our world, that's going to pay for the salaries, the repairs, the lights, and all of that over that 6 month period. The reserves, the 573,000, is the equipment fund, the street improvement fund, the above and beyond the rainy day fund. So,
Those are the funds that I created to actually earmark the funds where they weren't earmarked before. They're physically earmarked. So if I fall off the face of the earth, you know that they're actually earmarked. So
Like for the fire truck.
for the fire truck,
For the truck that's for the city.
Yeah.
Yep.
and those earmarks are internal designations, so they can be changed internally. Just like anything else, sometimes cities hesitate to give the earmark because they don't want to tie themselves down, but just as easily as you can create it, it can be modified or changed if need be. The unassigned is truly that operation piece, and that's what we wanna see, about 50% of your expenses. The state says 35 to 50%. That's what they say for all cities in Minnesota, so that's as big as Minneapolis and as small as, much smaller than you. The smaller you are, the heavier you rely on LGA and tax money, so I think it's more important to stick to that 50% mark. And then sometimes bond rating agencies will wanna see closer to 75% mark in that unassigned to know that you have a little bit of a cushion outside of the normal need. So some cities strive to kind of hit that 50 to 75% target. I wanna say, well, it's in here.
I was at 75, but we've had some projects go through.
I wanna say you were like right at 60-ish%.
But my goal is always 75.
It's on page 40, and it was at 60.8% of 2023 budget at the end of the year. So you're inside that target, and yes, you have had some money spent down recently. Any questions on that fund balance and that moving of those funds into? So basically now we're just seeing that assigned amount is what's set aside for those future projects. And that would be the amount under the non-major governmental, and they're gonna be detailed in the back as far as which pot they belong to and how much in each. Page 19 gives the reconciliation between those two balance sheets, so it shows the effect of those long-term assets and liabilities and how they add back in. 20 is the statement of changes, or statement of revenues and expenses and changes in fund balance, so it's the income statement for you piece. The general fund had revenues of $2,410,000, expenditures of $2,406,000, and then the overall decrease for the year in the general fund was $370,000. Going back to the change here, a big chunk of that is, because I heard one of the council members ask about the project, there had been a Joy in Maine project that had expenses go out a number of years back, and it kind of sat dormant, and when we went through things, Chris said, I don't know what's happening there, let's just clean it up and get it out of the general fund, clean up that deficit and take the funds out of the general fund, so that's where you have that transfer out. It wasn't the full 540, it was like 300,000 of it. The exact amount is in the back here. Still not there. It was $320,046. And so that piece, without that, you would have had about a $50,000 decrease in the general fund in the year. So it wasn't necessarily cash decrease in the current year. The cash had been spent out in previous years. It was just kind of truing up because now there's really no true funding source that's going to come back into that project fund. So we're just truing it up with the money came out of general, if that makes sense. Any questions on that piece? The non-major governmentals had an increase of $783,296. So 170 the remaining out of general fund went into those project funds to establish funds over there. Page 21 gives the reconciliation between the statement of activities and the income statement we just saw, so it shows that current effect of that change. So on the kind of that current look of the financials, we're seeing a positive 413,000, and when we're taking into account all that long term, it's a decrease of 199,000, so it's about a $600,000 swing there. Biggest piece of that is just the depreciation piece. We're depreciating out those long-term assets versus expensing them out in the current year. Page 22 is the statement of net position for the enterprise funds, the water, the wastewater, and the liquor funds. As a whole, they have assets of $19,541,000, liabilities of $7,533,000, and the total net position of $12,112,000. And you can see the total net position, water has $5,115,000 and wastewater has $6,529,000, and then the remaining $466,000 is liquor. On page 23 gives the statement of revenues and expenses or the income statement for those funds. If you go about 5 lines up from the bottom, that change before or income before transfers, that's the line the state looks at as far as where the fund's self-sustaining. All 3 of them had positive changes. Water had an increase of $137,000, so wastewater had an increase of $416,000, and the liquor had an increase of $36,776. The transfers all went over to general fund to support those for operating purposes. Page 24 is the cash flow statement. So again, gives you that cash flow piece. The water had a decrease in cash. Big chunk of that was they paid some cash for some capital projects for some improvements that were done. Same with wastewater, a large decrease in cash, but there were large capital assets that were cash funded. And then liquor had a small, $1,500 decrease in cash. Then we did kind of highlight on page, I think it was 40, that fund balance note. So again, the target is 35 to 50%, and you guys were at 60.8% when we looked at the 2022 unassigned fund balance in relation to the 2023 budget. Otherwise, the notes, there's really nothing new in there from previous years. If you skip ahead to page 55, it starts with your budget comparison. On page 55 shows the revenue side of the budget. The budget called for revenues of $2,122,000, actuals $2,410,000, so about $288,000 over budget there. Couple areas where you had large budget variances were in the intergovernmental revenues and some of the grants and aids, and then in the charges for services. Page 56 goes on with the expenditure side of the budget. General government was under budget by about $13,800. Page 57 continues on with the public safety. Public safety was under budget by $29,000. Public works was under budget by $75,000. And then culture and rec was over budget by $104,000. A big chunk of that has to do with the fact that your revenues were up on that piece. So although the expenditures are over, your revenues were over in relation to the charges for services. Sanitation was over budget. And then the total expenditures on page 58, budget was $2,387,000, actual was $2,406,000, about $18,000 over budget there. Your budget called for a deficit of $265, actual is $370, so about $105,000 over budget there. But again, most of that came from that transfer to clean up that project fund. And if you skip back a ways, starting on page 71, it starts with the non-major governmental funds and shows you details. So the first 71 and 72 show it by fund type. And then the 6 pages after show each of those funds individually and what they're earmarked for. On page 77, that's where that capital equipment fund is shown now. So I think Chris has it in a little bit more detail on her end of things as far as who has what money. But to simplify the financials, we put it all in one combination so you don't end up with 10 or 12 columns there. But the overall assigned is that $563,000. And then if you go back on page 80, starts with the auditor's report on internal control. And there were 2 findings noted. They are going to be detailed on page 82. The first finding is the fact that the city did not prepare the financial statements, and the second one is the lack of separation or segregation of duties within the accounting for the city. And then the final page in there, that you have is the Minnesota legal compliance, letter, and there's no findings in relation to Minnesota legal compliance. So that one looks at things like, bid laws and, public purpose expenditures, open meeting rules, those kinds of things that govern state statutes around cities and making sure you're in compliance. So usually when it's a legal compliance finding, it's something that you could have controlled. The internal control findings in a small entity become a little harder to control. Any questions?
Got it.
If anything comes out, feel free to let Chris know, and she knows how to get a hold of me, so. I'll leave this one for you, Chris. I can always reprint.
So does everybody feel comfortable to take it to the agenda for tonight to approve the 2022 audit?
I think so.
I can do that. And then can I ask that I get 2 Excel files, one with the journal entries and one with the depreciation schedule?
If I forget, remind me.
Okay,
I'll try to remember.
thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other than that, I had nothing else on the workshop unless there's, would somebody pop in back there? Hi.
Howdy. Just with Congressman Finstead's office.
Oh,
Figured I'd stop through.
hello. We're still in workshop, so if you wanna introduce yourself to the council.
Alright. Well, thank you, Brad. Folks, my name is David Wing. I'm the newest district outreach representative for Congressman Brad Finstead. I'm just here tonight just to listen in on any concerns that you might have. Also to let you know that we have an office up in New Ulm that opened just this last week. We're open Wednesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 5. Other times you can always contact us via our mobile phones. I've got business cards for you if you like.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you.
I'm gonna watch the recording of this
Thanks, sir.
story because I don't have anybody else to go to the concert, so.
Okay.
That's what I was just about to draft an email to you this morning. I was like, I'm not gonna have time to meet before, so.
Relying on
Thank
your
you.
recorder.
Do the best I can.
Yeah, they're always fine quality.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're running away.
Made a motion
I,
to close the
what did I
workshop.
say?
I make a motion that we close the workshop.
I'll second.
Hey, yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion